Welcome to another session of Lifting Your Spirit, a monthly broadcast in which you interview people about their spiritual lives and how they support others in lifting their spirit. I'm Reverend Joel Grossman, Interfaith Minister, Director of Spiritual Services for Constellation Hospice here in Newburyport, and I also offer spiritual coaching virtually on a donation basis.
And I'm Ted Jones, a meditation teacher at North Shore Insight Meditation Community.
The show is based on the following four principles. One, everyone is spiritual. Sometimes we are conscious and active in our spiritual lives, sometimes not. But even when we're not, we still have a spirit.
And second, that there are many ways to lift your spirit, not only through traditional religious or spiritual practices, but also through nature, art, human relationships, service to others, just to name a few.
Third, each person's spiritual path is unique and may change in small or large ways over time.
And fourth, that it's important to respect your own spiritual journey, trusting that one step leads naturally to another, and to respect the uniqueness of other people's spiritual journeys, even though they may be very different from your own. We're not here to convince you of the benefits of any particular approach or practice, but more just to offer you food for thought.
And we're very pleased to have Meg Rayne with us today. I've known Meg for many years in different capacities. I've enjoyed her music, and she was kind enough to come to, what would we call it? Let the Spirit Move You, like Cosmic Celebrations at the Belleville Hall there. So we'll hear a lot about Meg's life.
Yeah.
So we're going to start as usual with asking Meg about her spiritual journey.
Sure. Wow. That's a huge conversation.
Yeah.
Because, I'm 71, and as we have lived these years, and, just being a chameleon of understanding, just colors and shapes and feelings and sounds. And I was a preemie baby. I was put in 1953. I was born and put in an incubator. And my mother had 3 kids at home. And when I did body work many, many years later, I had the flashback of being in this white enclosed and having doctors looking down at me with white masks on and these hand things where they could touch me through. And I'm feeling it now. Yeah. As a baby, my mother went home, and I was there for somewhere around 2 weeks. So I'm needy. I know in my body that I hold this longing for touch, sensation, grasping for love. And there's just sort of, of course, our primal urge. So that's really that beginning, being, shot into this family of one of 7 kids, and I'm right in the middle. And I did some work on that too. And I remember being a little girl, like 3 years old, and spinning, looking around, like, where do I fit? Who am I here? Who am I? As some of the great sages, who are you and where are you going? And when I was thinking about my spiritual journey, I remember being about 8 years old. And two things, looking down, and my mother wanted to get rid of the ants in the garden. And looking down at the ants and these anthills with millions, And I, initially was stepping on them, because that's what you did, or you poured gasoline down that thing, And I remember just having this, gaspy moment of, wow, these are beings that they're having a life, they're doing what they do. So that flicker of connection, I'm connected to everything. And then in that same year, I think it was somewhere around 8, my parents were both not atheists, but they didn't go to church. My mother had been a Unitarian, grew up in the Unitarian church, in Maine. It was very Unitarian, her parents. And my father his father was Catholic. His grandmother was Episcopalian. And he was a very devout man, my grandfather, my father's father. But we weren't. And my mother took us, when we moved to Illinois for my dad's work, we got dropped off at a Methodist church in Illinois. The kids, they'd go home. My mother would make the pancakes and the sausages, and I still can remember the pancakes and the maple syrup coming home from church, from Sunday school. The thing I remembered about that Sunday school, along with several things, but was walking into the closet where the crinoline, bright gold choir robes were. And I still can smell they smell like smoke. Somebody smoked in there. The big robes, and then there were the smaller ones for the kids. And getting one of those robes, and I can remember just having it on and singing in it with that choir, and feeling like, here I am, God. I'm something. I am part of the, singing for God. Mm-hmm. And that moment really, it just impressed me so much. And I carried that with me when we moved to, and another big moment, of course, was when JFK died. John F. Kennedy died. My father cried. And that was a big spiritual moment for me, too, because I saw this person I looked at as a God who became human. And I started to connect with the bigger world about what is politics, what is peace and justice, what are social causes, where do I fit? So we moved to Scituate, and there was the Vietnam War time, and I started to get involved in the ideas. I remember my social study teacher was fired for being anti-government, anti-war. And we all went out and the whole school, we sat on the lawn, and that was the beginning of a very embodied sense of, I'm powerful to make my own point in this world. I have something, I'm a part of an understanding that, there is a peace and justice movement, and then there's this force that's against it. Somehow, what is that force? Shadow,
Yeah.
the shadow. And I got married when I was 18, and I get catapulted into my sexuality. Also my yearning took me into a real addiction, and I became an alcoholic in my marriage of somewhere around between 16 and until I was 28. And at 28 years old, I remember very distinctly, I was in a band, a hard rock band with my husband. We were practicing, and I was drinking, and I was hiding it. And a new band member who was auditioning, Rod Wells, I'll always remember Rod, he said, I can't be in a band with someone who's drinking because I don't drink, and I can see that you're going upstairs and you're coming down changed. Mm-hmm. And I would go up and I'd get my Coke and my vodka, and I'd come down. And again, it's like, okay, what do you do about this? Where can my yearning take me now? I don't want to be this. I want the fineness of my life. I felt that right then. And I went to meetings. I started going to meetings. So I am at this point 44 years sober from alcohol.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's great.
Thank you.
Really great.
And that spiritual journey, going to meetings, realizing a personal God rather than the God out there, that I can remember my mother saying to me when we went to my first Unitarian service after being in that Methodist service and coming when I was 12, went to a Unitarian, and it was a Christmas Eve, and the minister said, we believe that Jesus was a prophet, and there are so many prophets that came through, and we don't believe in the virgin birth, and oh my God. So I said to my mother, and I was crying, because, I had gone to Catholic services with my friend as well, and I loved the stained glass and the sounds and the music, always the music. And she said, "You don't believe that crap, do you?" And she said, "Think, do you really believe that?" And that was a moment, another pivotal moment, and I don't know what I believe. I just don't know. And my teenage years and in my marriage, I started to do psychedelics. And I had some, along with, of course, it was sex, drugs, and rock and roll. We were talking in the 70s, 60s, 70s, late
Wild
70s,
times
wild,
back then.
fun times. And the moments of touching God of becoming, one with everything were there. I had those moments. And then, of course, I'd be so frightened by it, I'd drink. I never really could put it together with a form of practice yet.
That sense of the opening or the awakening to the oneness, there is a dissolution of self, and that is very frightening.
Yes.
Or can be, if you, hopefully eventually we get used to that. But that kind of brought you back to the drinking. It's like too much. Yeah.
Well, to be an embodied, be in the world but not of it. But my sense of being an embodied individual was very confused, because of my birth and my upbringing and expectations. And, when I was 28, that was a wake up for me. And then I had my baby at 30. My Laurel, my one daughter, that was another, embodied sense of the magic of God. And my yearning, when I left my marriage, was the big one. When I left my marriage at 38 and crashed and burned and ended up in the wacky loony bin at Anna Jake's 2 North. Thank you, God, that there's a 2 North to hold people. And I had friends in the Quaker committee, Quaker committee, Quaker church, that came and held me. Because I was seeking at that point we were going to different churches and trying different things out. And my cousin Beth also came, and she said, "I know who you are, Meg. I know who you are. You're full of delight. You're full of joy. You're full of, God doesn't expect you to be anything but who you are." I can remember being in the fetal position on the floor in that hospital, going, "Oh God, who am I? What am I?" And spinning in my body. And when I came in my head, and this connection here, going through portals of understanding, just in that crazy, trying to come to some sense of who I am and the richness, but the fear. Real, terrified, the fear of that baby was there. And I was sent to a Shalom Mountain Retreat and Study Center where they do body-oriented process work. and it's a very spiritual place. And, you know,
When you said you were sent there, was that
I
a
was.
referral process from the hospital, or did you find
I
that on your
went.
own?
I went and I was left the hospital. I was looking for a therapist. I was sitting, crying, of course, because that's what I did. And I was sitting on the post office steps out here, and David Tompkinson came by, and he said, "You need to see my wife Irene." And she said, "Meg, you know, you got to go to Shalom. You got to experience," which is, it's breath work. It was doing holotropic breath work, and then body-oriented process where you're blindfolded if you want to be, and I did. I wanted to stay in my process in community. And the community is around you, and they. To my mind, it's like Lazarus. It's really the story of Lazarus, of, you know, awakening. The shadow comes up and reveals itself. Everything that has to be healed, all the fears and the terror. And yeah.
Now, holotropic breathwork was developed by Stan Groff.
Yes.
Right, who was a preeminent researcher
Yes.
in psychedelic drugs. And then when that became illegal to even do that
Yeah.
research anymore, he developed that
Yeah.
to take you in the same direction, which was toward a spiritual awakening.
Awakening.
It sounds like that really
Worked.
had the desired.
It certainly
impact
did,
on it.
and also being in community, I realized. So that was one thing, and then
Well, before we leave Groff, he's well known for rebirthing. And given your birth experience, that must have been pretty powerful.
it was very powerful, and I did do rebirthing after that, and, you know, welcomed myself into the world, you know. Because there was a point in my life where I looked up and I had my mother's wallpaper on the wall in my living room. It was so similar, and I hadn't put that together. I had, you know, gotten married. I didn't have a baby right away, but I was living a prescribed life, not my own, in many senses of the word. And I do believe we have to go beyond our parents. We do. We, you know, of course, take up our own real self-realization in our own way. And that spiritual path was very shamanic for me, because going to Shalom, of course, AA with the God of my understanding. I started going to Unity when I was 38 and had left my husband. I was introduced by Curtis Haynes to the idea of, and the musical journey there, being that I could write music that identified with my own journey. So I could write words that powerfully expressed how I was opening up to spirit, and how did I dare? You know, how would I? You know, what were my longings and my fears? And so I started writing these, you know, just unconditional songs about, you're it. You're the one you're waiting for, Meg. You are the universal one. And I'm like, Meg, me? I'm just Meg, you know. But I am it. It's the universe lives in me. So that sort of shamanic, new age. Then I went to India, you know, and to watch that Hindu culture, very much little altars, everything is sacred, you know. To watch the man who took my flip-flop, now I'm talking about a flip-flop, and I went up to him and I said, you know, and he was doing his ritual, he had his incense going, and he was looking down, and I had my flip-flop, and he was on the ground with all these flip-flops and shoes around him, and he just goes, he didn't even look up. He went like that, and he continued to bless every instrument, you know, and he had his Shiva and his mala beads. He was doing whatever, and then he looked up, and he took my flip-flop for 10 cents. He sewed it back together with the most devotion, and I thought, well, if everything is a prayer, fun is a prayer, and being in my body is, and I started to, put that really into my practice, in my therapy practice. I felt like, all these people coming to me with trauma in their bodies, and I knew that the way that I healed was through love, laughter, celebrating my vulnerabilities, my littleness, that it all was that all these parts of me that had fractured, I could now take them back and say, okay, honey, you can be seen in the light, because even my blackness, the part of me that hates is God, so
Yes.
whoa. I have this line in What Prayer Changes Everything, and it's pray into darkness to the psychological ache, and to pray for the killer, pray for the rapist in us all. Pray, because I have that in me. And if I see it in others, I must have it in me, right? We know this.
Yes.
And looking at how I had, othered my mother and my father, that they weren't there for me. Just reaching, but it's always reaching for God. And I just trust that. I trust that that's it, in the nutshell, is all longing is the longing for God in me. So, the neediness of wanting to touch you and be vulnerable with you. Real. What is that? I mean, how do we get that with each other instead of, so much resistance? So in Shalom work, we call it blocks to loving. All of that shadow work is coming to terms and bringing to light the blocks to loving that have made me close my heart.
Let's talk a little bit about trauma and treatment of trauma and how that fits in, and the importance of the body.
Yeah.
Holding the trauma and serving, and that really getting in the way for people. And that a few years ago, Bessel van der Kolk wrote the book, The Body Keeps the Score, which is a wonderful book, and I'm so pleased. I said when it came out, I think the world would be a better place if everybody read this book. I just checked the New York Times bestseller list. It's
Still.
number one on the paperback bestseller list, and it's now 345 weeks. So it's really getting into the sort of more in the mainstream, people understanding that.
Yeah.
The one area that I was a little disappointed in that book was that he didn't really talk much about hands-on treatment, which I think is really crucial. And I know it's something that you do. And I'm wondering if you could talk about that and talk about the importance in it for the people that you treat.
Well, we're tactile beings, right? And our skin, this huge organ, right? Well, when I got out of Anna Jake's hospital and I had no marriage, I hadn't gotten a career together, and I went and I was crying all the time. I went and got a massage. Well, that massage changed my life because she didn't judge me. She just said, okay, go ahead and cry. You're just crying. Okay, so I cried all through the massage. And then there was something in me that said, well, gee, could I do that? Could I touch people like that and have an impact? And I looked into it, and it was affordable. And, my mother had never had a massage in her whole life. Now, it wasn't something that was in my family's history. So I went to Massage Institute of New England for a 2-year training back in 93 to 95, and came out of that. And because I was seeing Irene, who was doing these retreats that she had sort of modeled after some of what we did, we hit things. you got people to open up. It was the whole idea is you make sound, you get primal, you get out of your ordinary, I'm a good girl, and you get into the stuff. So I started working for her at her retreats, and I'd get people on the table, and I'd put my hand on their heart. Here's my kind of timidly, what's going on in there? What you got going on in there? And all of a sudden this, they'd start shaking, and hey, my mother, and then I'd go, Irene, she's ready for you. This roaring bull would come out and start eating. So, okay, the truth is in there. The real primal, feelings of, where we weren't seen, heard, loved, honored, respected. I'm going to get you for that. And then you see, well, if you're getting them, you're getting yourself. It doesn't serve me in the end to kill everybody, And what comes out of that flash of insight is this very young part, mostly, is longing for that, to be seen, heard, recognized. It's okay. You're okay. You're more than okay. You're part of an revolution that can be very messy. And if you don't let it get messy, you're missing the point. It's grisly. We are grisly. We're made of sinew and bone and meat. And we get so high up into this head that we miss all of these chakras. And so, getting into that with her, with Irene, and then Shalom, and then going further with it shamanically, because thousands of people have been on my table, and whether you do past life regressions or this body has a genetic, multi-dimensional understanding that is communicating with maybe planets where you were, hundreds of generations ago. Maybe you were on another planet. Who am I to, my understanding has grown so much in that field or just to let it be. I don't judge it. The things that come to me on the table with people and my own journey are just so interesting. I just, if I made them up, okay, I don't care. It makes me laugh, So that work, yeah, because I could touch people.
Yeah, so if someone was coming to you today,
yeah,
for treatment, what could they expect in terms of the sort of process? I mean,
who knows?
Sort of the types of things.
If somebody's like this, I might say, let's get up and dance. Can you just move your shoulders a little? I don't dance. Well, just move your shoulders and see what happens, And it can be little increments, or it can be, I have a roller where people lay on and they, once, most people don't really open up like that very often. You may in yoga, but lots of people don't do it. So I have you can get on this thing and just, you start to get your foot in the door of what's inside here. The yogis, they teach you, I haven't had this teaching, but how to go up through the chakra, through all the linga that go between each chakra, and they burst. I've certainly talked to people who've had their kundalini and through different chakras. it opens, and the world, the universe, more opens, and this is what the great gurus has sometimes simultaneously, sometimes through long practice in caves. And for myself, I just find it all so fascinating and so delightfully that I'm connected to it all. And what's next, I don't know. But if somebody comes to me, that's the wonder. What's next for you? Where are you stuck? If I press down on someone's stomach right here, often there's this big knot of like an energy cyst. So people throw up, they cough and cough or start laughing, and anything can happen. So you just say, well, okay.
So it's a very individualized approach and very intuitive.
Very
for
intuitive,
you. But also drawing on a wide variety of training that you've had, going back to massage therapy.
Massage,
so that you're able to apply a lot of different approaches to people, it sounds like.
It's really, if it was channeling, I guess, for me, it's like, once I stop being so self-absorbed and like, what are they going to think? Am I doing it right? Oh, what if I do it wrong? I'm going to hurt them. Once I stop thinking like that, it just becomes about what the energy is and how to follow the energy, because that's all we're made of. And so if you relax into that and see where the stiffness is and you touch it, boing, boing, can I get it a little deeper? It's really, it can be very very fine work, or just laugh until your belly breaks, and just like, oh, there it is. I was really hating my mother, but, when I started changing her diapers and she started laughing and whatever, something can break, and we can see that love is there. It's not, we don't have to look at other, or that fear of other, and make it so much a part of how we view life. I am you and you are me.
Right, there is no other.
No. And I like to shake some people into understanding that. Bang, bang. Sorry. That's how enlightened is that. But
shifting the conversation some, unless there's anything more you want to say about the body work?
No, I'm just grateful. I have work I love. Yeah.
Well, I know your great other love is music, and you went from being a sharer of your music to music director.
Yes.
With Unity.
Yeah.
So could you talk a bit about Unity and your role in Unity and leading others in releasing through music?
Oh, gosh. Oh, I'm so grateful. I went to Unity. Well, it's Curtis, my mentor, my music minister mentor, because he truly is a music minister. He had heard, I was in a duo called Gypsy, and he had heard us, and he said, why don't you come play at Unity? We were in the old place on Macy Street on 110. And so we did, Leslie Priest and I, in 1996, I think it was, yeah. And so we played there. And I just went once and I never left. I mean, I was so excited and thrilled by that. I could call it a sangha, just of people on a journey to open up to the Spirit in a way where I am the one I'm waiting for. It's always that. That's what Unity teaches. That's the belief. There's no God out there. I mean, it's all here, and you are part of it, and I am. We are all, and that individual journey and collectively was exciting to me to be part of. So I never left. I became part of the choir, and I became Curtis's choir director and assistant musical director, and we had money then. I mean, there were two services, about 300 or so people a week, and that was before 9/11. You know, 9/11 was a big turning point for the contraction of this United States. You know, I think we really started to distrust, and also, you know, organized religion, it should be distrusted, I think, on many levels, and you have to be very discerning about, you take what you need and you leave the rest. And with Unity, I found a new path to gurus. I was very distrustful of dear Jesus, and but through Mary Magdalene and Mother Mary, I came back. I came back to understanding and trusting and having more faith in that lineage of guru. And then doing kirtan, I've also been studying Hinduism, and that path in music, it's all chanting the names of God, and it's the energy, and this is what I get when I sing at Unity too. It's the energy of singing to and for and as the beloved to excite the soul, to remember, to drop in and revere the holy in this body as the resonance of God, and believing and trusting in the sound. My sound is part of that. Is the Om, part of the holy Om, the one. So Unity, I went through a bunch of music directors after Curtis. I went through, there was Ken Clark and Maura Lynch, and then after Maura left, and there was a hole in there wasn't anyone, and I woke up in the middle of the night and I said, I'm the next one. Now, I am not a classically trained musician. I am totally by heart. I was very dyslexic as a child. I did study some harmony, but as my glorious partner, John Hyde, who's knows music inside and out. I mean, diminished chords excite him. And I'm like, I still don't quite know what that is. But I do know how to to move a service and help it to coalesce with the music, and what songs will help that movement to open hearts and get us open. And I went to the minister at the time, Ogun Holder, and I said, I'm your person. And he said, well, you'll be our interim person. And that was almost 7 years ago. So, yeah, I've lived into that, and I've done albums, musical CDs, which I've got in my basement. I've probably got a ton of them. It's still, but who uses them? But I'm on Spotify, and so I'm around a bit. And I think, as a young woman, when I was a young girl listening to Joni Mitchell, and I was laying there with the, if you can remember those days when we were listening to, Dylan, and for me it was Joni Mitchell, the Moody Blues, Nights in White Satin, Traffic, Dear Mr. Fantasy, and I'd have my JBL speakers, and I just laying there, and I wish I had a river, and that was my church. That was my church, and those lyrics of, sadness, empowerment, go out there and tell the man off, with going through Vietnam, and what are we fighting for? I still am that person. That's my church, is what are the words that are lighting me up, and the progression of the chords, the melody that opens my heart, my body, what makes me want to move. And that's what I want for other people too. I want them to move. I want people to, be embodied and help, to just jiggle yourself and just, I'm alive, I've got cells that are, just a miracle, that they're talking to each other, that every single cell in my body knows what's going on. I don't even know what's going on, but my body does. So it's delightful. I mean,
Let me just suggest to our listeners that if that appeals to you, Unity is the place to go.
yes, every Sunday, 10 o'clock at Havas Hashem, synagogue downtown, Washington Street. It's a blast. It's a message that is for all ears. The truth is the truth. The truth is the truth. It's the truth.
So I want to share one musical memory of you that has always stayed with me. The Firehouse Cabaret
Yahoo!
with,
Put the moon to bed.
that
with
was
Curtis.
quite an evening. The three of you, Cheryl and Brian and you.
Yes, all of us. Yeah, it was. Curtis was my producer, and I had this dream vision, and my father had lost his thumb. He played clarinet, and he had an accident, and he lost his thumb, and he stopped playing. But he listened to big band. My mother would go out and go to the store, whatever she did. And so there we were. I'd be like, I can still remember, like 6 years old, and there'd be me and my younger brother Chet was there, and my older brothers Gordon, and maybe my sisters weren't so much, but the two boys and I, and my dad would blast Benny Goodman, like it was like on 10, maybe 12,
Wow.
and and my dad really initiated the musical love in me. I got it from him, and so I wrote this whole album for him, and I got this gorgeous dress and diamonds, and I had the roses on the piano and this whole full band. And my father, he'd never heard me sing. My father was not, he was too busy, and he had all these other things. And then I did that concert, and he came.
Oh, he came?
He came. He was in his 80s, and he'd heard me, like he'd say, "Come play Burl Ives for us" or something. And when I was a little girl, and I go, "Burl Ives, black is the color. I know black is the color of my true love, but so I wasn't his idea at that time of what a musician was, because it was Joni Mitchell for me. But then I said, okay, I'm going to write this sort of big band. And it was a beautiful concert. Thank you for remembering that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, back in 2007 it
Was that
was.
when it was?
Yeah.
At the Firehouse.
Curtis just put it out on the he put it out on his Facebook. You can watch the whole
Yeah.
concert. Yeah,
Wow.
I put it on mine too. So if you want to watch it, it was
Okay.
really something.
Yeah.
Sold out, standing room only. My big debut.
Mhm.
It was my big thing. It
Yeah.
was the big. Yeah.
Well, this has been wonderful. Before we get to the final question, do you have anything else you'd like to?
Throw in about who I am, what I do.
Yeah.
My music, my heart. I'm very grateful now. I'm just so grateful to be 70 and singing and still doing the work I love. And my partner and I, John Hyde, do kirtan, singing, chanting, meditation events. So I do want to say that there will be one at Unity on the 29th of August at 12 to 1:15. It's during the day. It's kirtan is a practice. It's when I went to Varanasi in India, every night. Huge. They're all right on the Ganges. They had these huge platforms with these sages with turbans on and all this incense and white faces, but painted with some blue, and incredible clothes, and people with fireworks, and they chant for hours, all the names of God, Shiva, Shakti, Rama, Hanuman, and they just chant, and it was this big festival every single night, and people just rocking and singing, and so I'm doing that with with John as.
So just give our listeners a little understanding of what kirtan is.
So kirtan is it is a Hindu based chanting. Much of the names that we sing are in Sanskrit. We sing chant mantras that are healing mantras that are really ancient. Some of them go back 5,000 years. Gate, gate, parasum gate. That's the, some of the original. They call them bij mantras, the seed sounds of the universe that the sages, as they meditated, they got these sounds that came through, and the feeling for it is that as you just chant these names of God, it is everything. It is the healing, the joy, the universe comes in, and it's not a religious, it's more about, movement. People dance during, because there's percussion, there's tabla or drum. Christine Malpica plays a wonderful djembe, dumbek, and bells, and then we sing, and it's call and response.
That's the main point.
That's
I want
the
the people
response.
to understand. You're not just listening, you're participating.
You are listening, moving, singing, your body's resonating with these sounds, and you have, I give people a piece of paper if you're like, what am I saying? And it translates, and it's the ones that I pick for the most part are the ones about the guru within. We're always coming back to that teacher within that is showing us our real essence is love, right? Yeah, that's who we.
Kirtan's a great experience. I encourage people to try it out.
Yeah. You can you just look up chanting kirtan on Spotify or anything. You'll find all kinds of people.
So, the big last question, your suggestion for how people can lift their spirit.
Oh, well, chant, sing, dance, love what you love. Don't miss smelling the roses. Go to Maudsley and see the rhododendrons, and now the mountain laurels are out. Don't listen to the news. Don't. If you do, breathe and pause before you push out against. Always take that extra breath. Remember, your body knows what joy is, remembers, we came here to love and be loved. Remember to honor yourself deeply, that you've taken a body. You took a body. You decided you did it. Take ownership of that. I think that's been the biggest gift for me is I've got a precious time on this earth. And sometimes, I've had times when I don't want to be here. But there are always, you take another breath. That passes and you realize it's a beautiful world. Love it, live it, and sometimes this is my new practice, if you have a rant, you say to the person, I have a rant. Can you hear my rant? And if they're a good friend, or if they say, well, I can you wait? Yeah, I go, oh, okay. But whatever it is, so that you can really interact with someone in that, and then go, oh, phew. Because you have to get the shadow out. You have to get that, I've got this piece in me that doesn't like what's going on. And yet, on the next breath, I'm here to experience it. It's all a lesson. Something, this or better, God. It's coming, We're evolving, the evolution revolution. Contract, expand. Contract, expand.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Meg. It's been lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Meg. This is really delightful and a wonderful message.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
And thank you, viewers and listeners, for being with us, and I hope you join us again next month.